It is time to talk some Saratoga racing in June. A little bit different right now. It is the Belmont Stakes Festival coming up at Saratoga. 4 days of racing this week. We will be talking about them right here with some videos previewing all of the big stakes races and some others along the way. I'm here with my good friend Barry. Are you ready for this, man? This is going to be a little different right now with Saratoga.
Yeah, it's a little strange. It hasn't really hit me yet. I'm sure it will on Thursday after they run that first race. But it's kind of exciting, having to bet on Saratoga a little bit earlier in the season. I don't know if the track's going to play the same way. I know there's some.
Weather-wise, we'll
Yeah,
be
I was going to
curious.
say I think some weather might happen, towards the end of the week anyway. But we'll be able to see, and it should be a fun time. I know this card on Thursday is pretty good. There's a couple of favorites that look like they might overwhelm some fields,
Well,
but
all weekend, right? And Friday
yeah,
too, looking at that, there's some heavy favorites. They're not all going to win, but there are
no,
some really overwhelming favorites that do look strong, right? In their spots. And so we will see this, and we kind of got a little lucky on Derby Day, and with not seeing as many of those big overwhelming short price horses in the races, and it's still kind of
yeah,
chalked out. It still was like a little but there are some big favorites, in particular on Thursday. So what we will talk about on this particular video, we're going to talk about all 4 of the stakes races on Thursday, and then we'll hit the late pick 4. So there's stakes races in races 2 and 4, and then in races 9 and 10. So we'll hit the 2 stakes races. We'll talk about them for a minute, and then we'll jump into the late pick 4 sequence, and we'll get you set up on Thursday. So this 4-day stretch coming up where they're going to be racing at Saratoga. Thursday, 4 stakes races, the Astoria, the Tremont, the Jersey Girl, and the Grade 2 Belmont Colt Cup to close it out. Then on Friday, 4 stakes races and all graded stakes pick 4 to close out the card, with the Intercontinental, the Just a Game, the New York, and the Acorn, 3 grade 1s. So that's 8 stakes races between Thursday and Friday. Then on Saturday, you have 9 alone, with the Woody Stevens, the True North, the Suburban, the Manhattan, the Poker, the Ogden Phipps, the Met, the Jaipur, and the Belmont. So that's just the next, that's the 3 days of racing between Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then on Sunday, to close it out, they've got a bunch of New York bred stakes races. So it's a really, really action-packed 4 days of racing coming up, where we'll see Belmont at Saratoga. So what DRF is doing for you, they're offering you the option to get the full package, all 4 days of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, past performances, clocker reports, and then betting strategies for Belmont Day, all in the VIP package for $50. Or you can just get the Belmont Stakes Day only, where you can get the PPs, the clocker reports, and the Belmont strategies for $25. So, I mean, if you're going to be playing these days coming up, just get the VIP package. You'll save a bunch. You'll get everything you need for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And man, this is going to be a lot of fun, Barry, as we get set for some big racing. Okay, let's jump into it. You and I are going to start with the first stakes race of the week up at Saratoga. One more time, shop.drf.com. That's the place to go for the Belmont Stakes packages. I'll make sure there's a direct link if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching on Twitter and on Facebook. That direct link will be right in there with them. Barry, we have the Tremont is the first of the stakes races that we're going to talk about in race number 2. I was just reading an article that came out in DRF a minute ago, and it was about Wesley Ward and the youngsters. And he was pointing out that he thought of all of his horses this year, the 2-year-olds, that Touchy was the best one, and that he saved this horse to run a little bit later and to get started a little bit later for possibly some of the bigger races. So just from a talking point, I thought at least start with this horse because in so many of these 2-year-old races early on in the season, especially, it's about Wesley Ward. And when you hear him make a point like that, you always go, oh, wow. Also, Touch the Moon, just kind of looking through this horse a little bit. The Dam, she won her debut, so she was precocious. That's a positive. And she's actually had 4 siblings to race. They're all winners. And there's, a couple nice horses, including Royal Approval, who's a grade 3 winner and who has been in some nice races. They went over to Ascot with that horse who didn't really buy her that day, but she faced tough company a couple different times. So let's start with her just from how do we play this thing? And then maybe any others that you might like.
Yeah, I don't know really how to take those comments because, typically when Wesley is a little understated, his horses run like a hole in the wind.
Yep.
And when he's overstated, they seem to run well, but
I know.
not as good as when he's understated. So I don't know how to take those kind of comments because obviously you see this horse, the breeding, who owns the horse, the whole connections, everything involved with this horse would lead anyone to believe that this horse would be live in a race like this, where there's a lot of first-time starters.
So let's
And
see.
there's really not much in there.
No. Let me give the direct quote. So David Grenning has the article. It's titled, "Per usual, Ward has strong juvenile pair in Tremont and Astoria." Never bashful to tout one of his 2-year-olds, Ward is extremely excited to run Touchy on Thursday, purposely getting him to the work tab later than many of his babies who excelled during the Keeneland spring meet. This guy from day one has been the pick of the litter, he said. I wouldn't start a maiden in a stake race if I didn't believe he had that ability. Last Friday, he worked in company with the Astoria runner, Longneck Paula, over the Oklahoma training track. Touchy started a few lengths behind. Even though he was under a hold from Exercise Rider, he finished a neck in front at the wire. It was an eye-opening breeze, Ward said. So, yeah, just to point out, because I had just read this right before you and I started to record, so I was like, oh, that's just so everyone knows, Barry and I are recording this on Monday, a little bit before they drew the field for the Belmont, so we won't talk about the Belmont field on this video, but Barry's going to be back with me for Friday racing and for Saturday racing too, so we'll definitely talk more about the field once it's drawn and everything. Most of you won't probably see this video until after the field is out, but we won't really mention that because we recorded it a little before that. So, yeah, seems to like this one a little bit, huh, Barry?
Yeah, he sounds like it, certainly, but it's still a first-time starter. I mean, you can't get around the facts that this horse is still first time on the track and anything can happen. I would be wary of getting a too short of a price on a horse like that if you do actually like Touchy. And there's some alternatives here. There's a couple of horses that
were
maybe,
impressive when they ran.
yeah, the ones that have run well, and then there's another first-time starter who I kind of like a little bit that might cause some waves there at some point in this race. But Classic, of course, is the one that I kind of like a little bit more than Three Echoes.
Yeah, and they both were good. I mean, both of their races were good. There's nothing to knock about it, but I agree with you. I thought the Classic of Course race was kind of a little flashier. He was just really fast. He sat just off the lead, kind of moved to the front. And what I liked is he got a challenge from the outside and then just kind of put that horse away and just drew off real quick.
Yeah, I thought it was a real professional kind of effort first time out, and can only get better getting top rider. So that's something to keep in mind, especially at 7-2 versus 2-1. On Touchy, that might be the way to go. But it's going to be real interesting how they bet this race. I was thinking that Classic, of course, will probably be second choice in front of Three Echoes, but we'll see. The other horse that kind of piqued my interest was Barreton's Baytown. There's some pedigree there, some precocity in the pedigree, and this horse has got some speed. I like that workout on May 24th at Keeneland, 46 breezing from the gate, a bullet 1 of 25 that day. It's almost one of the better works on the page for any of these horses. So I think you might want to give that one a shot, especially with the nondescript sort of connections, people that you don't see in these kind of races very often. That may be the tip hand that they have a decent horse here that might be able to run. That the dam Kika was pretty quick, and there's a couple of other siblings that kind of ran really fast, really well first couple of times out.
So the logical 3 Echoes right next door. This horse was good at Churchill in the debut, stayed close from the rail, was just behind the leader, was about a length and a half off at most, sitting third, traveling well, got a really nice opening on the inside. Things got a little bit tight, but he was eventually able to work his way through, got up for the win, and earned a nice. That's a good speed figure for a debut runner. That's really nice at that point early on in the season, too. And even the one I thought at Laurel
Mm-hmm.
in the slop, so it's not going to be as flashy. But I thought the victory was like solid. It was third down on the inside, kind of got shuffled back to fifth, and was about 6 lengths off. Like closing that much at 4.5 in the slop, that first time out. So at least we know that there's a couple of these horses in here that can pass some horses that have sat behind them. Both 3 Echoes and Studley do right. I mean, from a wagering standpoint, they put this race early on the card, and some of these that probably are a little shorter prices. I think this is one of them where they may be expecting that with Touchy, but like, as you said, got to get out of the gate. Spotting there's some experience in here, some horses who ran well, but a lot of these young horses in these races with young horses go through Wesley Ward. That's race number 2, the first stakes race on the card, Thursday at Saratoga. Let's move to race number 4. I'm not sure if anybody could hear, but it's so funny. It's like sitting here for the last couple hours doing a little bit, not just doing some work, not recording anything. And then as soon as you and I sit down, the person next door,
Blowers.
they're hammering. Well, now they're hammering because they're getting some work done. Well, this poor guy, my next door neighbor, he was out of town for a few days, and his thing got like something happened with his like I guess his like washing machine or something, like flooded his apartment inside, and he was like all flooded. It was a mess when he came home from like a week being gone. It's like, oh, talk about brutal. Just a brutal way to come home, and it's like you just want to go to sleep, and you're all tired, and it's like, oh my gosh, now you got to worry about this. His whole floor is all messed up. So bummer for that. But if there's any pounding in the back, sorry about that. Let's get to the Jersey Girl. It's going to be the next stakes race that we discuss. That's race number 4 on Thursday. So this is a 6 furlong sprint. And Barry, we're going to have a horse who's a heavy favorite on the morning line. That's the 5, Almost Gone Rocket, who's 6-5 for Brad Cox. I mean, she's been very impressive in both of her starts. And I think the real key for her in a race like this is that she's shown that she can sit off horses. She's not a horse that is just run off and has to get caught up in a battle, because in races like this, you just expect there to be a lot of speed. Carmelina draws the rail, and she wasn't able to get close to the lead last time. So I think they're going to try really hard just to get her as close as possible here. Roman Grace is going to want to go. You'll have a real wild card in Monima Gold. She's the UAE Oaks winner, and she had some issues with travel getting over here because they would have loved to have start her in a different race, but she got really backed up, and then they didn't want to push her into the Acorn yet when she had so much time off and go right into a 1.125 race. So they kind of are sort of starting over here. Pletcher thinks this might be a little short for her. He said he'd prefer if it was 7. But I mean, she's certainly got a lot of ability, and she's kind of a wild card as far as what tactically they will choose to do with her or how fast she could be compared to some of the others in here. Because to the outside, Barry, you'll have the 7, Moonlit Lady, who's fast, and Gray Lightning is really fast. And their connections have said, yeah, she does not want to sit. She can't sit. She has to go.
Yeah, I mean, with all those things combined, this really looks like this race sets up like the perfect race for the favorite, Almost Gone Rocket. I mean, I don't believe this horse needs the lead. Probably doesn't. Will sit chilly. Pratt's best in the business with the clock in his head and timing races and pace and reading the racing form. You can tell he does. It's really going to be hard to get around this horse.
Yeah.
Manama Gold is another one that I think is very, very good. it's going to be hard to separate these two horses because they're going to have the same running style in this race. And it's just a matter of who out finishes who, because this pace is going to heat up. Great Lightning is going to go full out.
Yep.
Moonlit Lady is going to be full out. The two horses on the inside should probably go as well. So that leaves basically Becky's Joker.
Those are the three,
and
that we
almost
talked about.
Ron
Because I
Rocket.
actually think if you're trying to play this race, that the two horses that are playable would be the 3 and the 4. Becky's Joker and Monument Gold, because what's nice about Becky's Joker is, one, we know she can pass horses, and two, we know she can fire fresh because she won her debut. So and with the way that we're hoping this race shapes up, it's not like she's going to have to be carving it out throughout. She's going to be taken back and then just tipped to the outside. And I don't really worry as much where her speed figure doesn't stack up quite as much. Remember, that was in the 2-year-old season, and she's missed a lot of time. Like, she just might be a much more improved horse right now at this time. I just don't know if she's as good personally. So that would be my issue. But I think if you're looking to bet this race, it would be the 3 or the 4, those two, based on, who's giving you the best value.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play it by ear, but you definitely know that the 3 and the 4 are not going to be the same price or even close to what the 5 is going to be. I'd say the 5 is probably going to get bet down so somewhere around 3 to 5 in this race, and probably deserves to be that based off the two efforts.
They were really good. And one of them is in the slop too, and it might be raining.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot going for that horse in comparison to everybody else, but it's not impossible to beat. I mean, we've seen these kind of things happen before, especially at Saratoga. So, that's the X factor. If you're playing a bigger ticket, you definitely would want to use the 3 and the 4, and otherwise I would kind of almost concede this race to the 5.
These first two races, I'm not going to bet very much.
Yeah,
right.
No,
I'm just not
very...
like we're going to talk about all these stakes races, and if certain horses present more value than they look like, then maybe I will jump in. But I'm not necessarily all in on, because for me, I have to feel comfortable about a favorite being really vulnerable, or about the other horses that I'm trying to beat them with their prices. And while I'm fine with Monoma Girl and I'm fine with Becky's Joker, they're both real wild cards with horses coming off of long layoffs right now. Monoma Girl, as Pletcher mentioned, just totally might need a race and be better at going a little bit longer. And Becky's Joker also just might need a race. She's entered in another spot too, but I think they're going to run here because the Acorn's a really tough spot.
Tougher,
that's just
way tougher,
really tough to go in. So yeah, that's why for me, it's just more of a, good group here. Like, keep an eye on this race. Maybe when it comes close to race time, the 3 or 4 is double their price or in the 10 to 1-ish range. Okay. Now I'm interested.
Right.
I feel like they're getting enough value, way more than they should be. The other horse I at least just wanted to talk about, because she was really impressive on the grass. Now they come back to the dirt, was Moonlit Lady, super fast in her debut, and then fast again, and she just gets headed going 6, and then they put her on the grass. Everybody kind of forgets about her, and then she just flies. She was really impressive, and she earned a big speed figure that day in winning that race. So just to give her mention, because I think she's a really honest horse, but I just don't think the race shapes up for her at all.
Yeah, it's just
all that other speed.
It's very interesting to me that the Star Guitar horse was just running exclusively in Dubai before coming here, and Pletcher, but he only stands for 5,500, and they sold that horse in Ocala for 200,000. So there's definitely talent there, and this horse has run off every time. So, and he's this should be a really good race to watch, if anything. If Minima Gold's probably a little higher than the morning line, I might venture and place a win bet on that one.
And she's a full sib to Overcharged. Full sis here to the really awesome sprinter who just won again on Saturday night in the Louisiana Legends. And that race was in the slop there, but she's got a nice pedigree too, for especially for Louisiana breds. Like these are like legit horses here. So let's look at the Jersey Girl. A couple of the undercard stakes races on Thursday. Let's move and talk about the late pick 4 sequence. Starts in race number 7. We just wanted to kind of talk about one of these sequences, and we'll be able to hit both of the stakes races in it. So I think a lot of you will be playing probably pick fours, pick fives, stuff like that. Pick fives, I would always recommend the lower takeout wagers, so just keep that in mind. And Barry, the 7th race is another one of these races where you have to just make a decision what you're going to do, because you have Ways and Means in here, who's 2-5 on the morning line. She's run 4 times. Her Beyer speed figures in her career are 90, 83, 90, and 80. The rest of the field has 62 races combined, and they've never hit higher than 79.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those angles that I learned way back when from Dave Lipton, rest in peace. Um, when the horse's last 2 races are above everybody else's in Beyer number, those horses hit at like an
Yeah.
astronomical percentage, and they win all the time, but albeit at short prices because everybody can see it.
Yeah.
This one is no different. I mean, there's really not much in here. I'd like to give a horse like Ms. Sense
Well,
a
that's the
chance.
one. That's the one if you're going to give a horse a chance, I think, because that horse was really impressive in the debut.
Just didn't come out of the gate.
And then in the second start,
It's crazy, that spinaway race.
just put a line right through it. And now you get first-time Lasix. You get a horse who is a half to a multiple graded stakes winner named Canoodling. And they had very high hopes and they think highly of this horse. Just based on where they placed this horse coming off of the debut, was favored in that debut, comes back. So it's, just the fact that she has the long layoff to deal with. The thing is with Ways and Means, who's 2-5, not only does she tower over the field on speed figures, but she's cutting back. She's going third start off the bench. This looks like the class relief spot to just get her a nice confidence building win and start to get her back up. Because we know she's got a bunch of talent. Like, talent's not her issue. And honestly, that Kentucky Oaks race looks worse than it is on paper because she has her speed figure went down compared to what she had. And you see that she was beaten 10 lengths. She was 4th in that race.
Yeah.
In a field of 14. She still beat 9 other horses. The only 3 horses she was behind, Torpedo, Anna, Just FYI, and Regulatory Risk, are all running in the grade 1 Acorn. And they're going to be 8-5, 5-2, and then 10-1. So it's not like she's done anything wrong. She's gotten in trouble a couple times and had brutal trips when she lost in the Spinaway in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. So all of that makes sense. I will counter that and say this has to be the spot that she wins and wins pretty easily, because if not, then you are going to start to say, okay, she's one of those just horses that was either pretty precocious early and hasn't been able to take the step forward, or she just is her own worst enemy. She runs into traffic, or she has a slow start, or she always finds a way. Because this has to be the spot for her right here. First time Lasix, third off the bench, cut back, major class relief. She can sit really close. Pratt can win like another race, which looks like on this Thursday card that he could have a bunch, right?
Yeah, well, she could run the race she ran in the Oaks and lay over this field pretty easily. I do have a notion that this could get a little crazy up front, as far as the pace goes. And a horse that kind of interests me a little bit is the 6 Broderie.
Absolutely.
Just a kind of a dead closer type. In this race, this horse looks like a dead closer, but
yep, you know what you're going to get with her.
Exactly.
She's gonna pass.
She's gonna finish, and it's just a matter of how she's finishing, what the fractions are up front, which could get pretty quick. And she could have a better turn of foot than a horse like Ways and Means. It's just, Ways and Means really hasn't been tested in that regard. Her first race, she was it was just set up for her to win. She just was way better than those horses coming out. But she struggled since. I mean, not struggled, but she was running with way better horses and doing well. I think the cut back to a mile it makes all the difference, and that's why she's 2-5. But I mean, should any horse be 2-5?
And Broderie to me was the Broderie and Miss Sense were the two. Like we said, Miss Sense is the kind of real wild card. What I like is I just feel the most confident that this filly will pass a lot of horses in here. All of her races make sense. She's never run a bad race. That was her first start going long. She ran well that day. She was chasing a horse who just got the jump on her. She had a good start. She was right with the leaders, but she just didn't want to go. They grabbed a hold. They backed up to sit 2 lengths off. She was in the 2 path. She was in between horses. She's kind of loomed up without a ton of room early in the stretch. And at that point, the leader had already separated. She was a solid second. And yeah, I think she fits really well in here. I had the 7 on top of the 6-4. And, you know, if I'm going to play this race, and yeah, I mean, I just really couldn't get much to anyone else. I think the 1's a nice horse also. I'll just keep an eye on her for next time. Her 8 Bells race, it was kind of like what I was just pointing out with Ways and Means. Like it may look a little bit worse because she's beaten 8 3/4 lengths, and you see that she was 5th, but you sort of go through the field and she still beat half the field that day. And when you're watching the race, she didn't run all that poorly. She kind of got stalled and came on again. She was off slow in the slop, and it wasn't really that bad all honestly afterwards. So I'll keep an eye on her, but yeah, again, from a gambling standpoint, if you're playing late exotics, you got to pick and choose. It's probably a race where you want to single Ways and Means or play out and chuck against. If you are singling, obviously, if you like her, that's the way to go. If you're going to use some others, Broderie, Ms. Sense, both of them would be ones that Barry and I think are worth including here. Will it be a good way to get a look if Ways and Means can just get things figured out? This is this figure it out spot for her.
Yeah, and I notice Chad Brown does this kind of often with horses that he's bringing back off layoffs like this, and horses that kind of go in a, not sour, because you can't say this horse has gone sour. She's been running very, very well, just not winning against the top,
like disappointing maybe, or like she's good, and you could tell they thought she was good. I mean, when she won that debut, she was the best 2-year-old in her division at that point. She was the best horse. She was supposed to be the best. There was buzz. Now I was drafting in a fantasy league. She goes way early, right? Like towards the very top. Everybody's talking about that kind of a filly. It was her and it was Tamara on the other coast. And then, she got into trouble, and then she's just gone, and she's out of sight, out of mind. And she shows back up, and she has that trouble trip in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. And then you feel like, gosh, going into the Oaks, it's going to be a perfect race for her. And then you just don't know what to get, like how to get a gauge for it when it's sloppy like that, too. So you can very easily be forgiving for a lot of what she's done, but at the same time,
she hasn't done it. Yeah,
exactly.
You don't achieved. I think that was the word I was looking for.
That was the word. Because disappointing is not even a fair word.
Right.
It's not. Yes. When you're a multiple grade 1 placed at this point, and you're like, that's not the right word. It's just underachieved for what they had hoped, for what she flashed in that first start. So there's a look at race number 7. Race number 8 is right next door. It's New York breds going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf course here. Want to mention the horse to the inside, Barry, on my radar a little bit here, the 1, Romantic Charmer, because going through his races overall, first 2 starts off tracks. He's on a good track, and he's behind a horse named That's Money, who comes back to win next time out with an 80 buyer speed figure in a first level allowance optional claiming against New York breds. Second start, again, an off track. It's a muddy seal track. But what I like is now in start number 2, start number 3, we're showing more speed, battling on throughout early in both of those, and then goes 1 mile. And that last race, he had a fine start. He was right with the leaders, in particular, one horse to the way outside that was fast, Ironman Ira, who was flashing speed that day. So he's right with that horse, but he took back. You just could tell he was not all that comfortable when they had to take him back too. And he's sitting 4th, about 2 lengths off. He's inside. He angles out. He's 4 deep. He just kind of hangs a little bit because I think he wanted to go, and then they pulled him back, and he was kind of moving wide. It was not a bad effort. And with the inside draw, I think they're going to just try to hold that positioning here. I love Javi with a horse like this down inside because he does a really nice job in that case. And without even looking at the direct pedigree, right away you'd say, wow, this horse looks like a horse that would be bred for the grass. With
Absolutely.
Langfuhr and then Mendelssohn on the top side. And then you can see that the Dam was also a 3-time winner on the grass. So I think this horse has an opportunity to step forward on the grass, Barry. I think the races are a little sneaky as he stepped forward. He got the 1 mile race on the dirt out of the way now, so he can be a little fitter. He's a pick 4, pick 5 horse for me in here.
Yeah, I certainly like all the points you brought up. One thing that I don't like is this horse likes to lose lengths in the stretch, and that's not encouraging. But the surface switch could be all the difference. And I would definitely make sure you get your price. I mean, you wouldn't want to take too short of a price on a horse like this.
No, and I think
Um,
he's going to be right around there. And what I'm hoping is, because I think in some of those races, what happened is you just got to be a little bit more decisive with go or sit, right? Because when you get kind of caught in between where you're sort of pressing in those races where I think he was a little bit too close to a fast pace and not sitting off of it or being the one setting the pace.
right.
And that's just what I'm hoping in that, he's one of those horses. I think if he's at and around this price, he could be sitting, saving ground, securing a nice spot down inside. He would be one of my price horses in here. Give me a couple that you like.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with number 8. All of a sudden, Lee.
Yep.
This horse has a full brother that isn't that bad on the turf. And I think that might translate second time out. I want to say the brother won first time out. I don't have it right in front of me,
Yeah,
but
win it or a skit. Yep.
yeah. And I think this horse has some upside. And attracting Lascano makes a difference for me too. Plus the bullet on May 31st
Yep.
coming into this race, it has some things to like, and that price is probably the best thing to like at 10-1. And I
He's going
think
to be
this one might
close
get
up too.
overlooked.
Yeah, and that race was not bad, honestly. He had a good start. He was second. He was in the 2 path. Takes back to third a little bit. He's 2 lengths off, and then he moves all the way up. He's second in early stretch, and then he fades. The finish looks worse than the race actually was. It was not bad, and it was a good race to build. Now you stretch out. I have no problem with him. I mean, he's another one of those price horses that you're using in here, especially if you're using Ways and Means in the race before. Like, you have to think about that kind of thing. This is a race that I think a lot of people will probably spread out. Like horses like Mission Hill, all good here. Those horses make a lot of sense, but keep in mind, they're going to be shortish prices for horses who are coming off of long layoffs. They may be, win or lose, they're going to be undervalued.
Right.
Absolutely could win, but this is, I think you're going there. Like even Film Academy is another one who's going to take a good amount of money. He's moving in with New York breds, but he hasn't raced since January. So we're coming up on a decent sized layoff here. Your top 3 betting choices in here all haven't run in at least 4 months.
Yeah, and that's tough to gauge. I know I've heard some, horse players in general kind of just dismiss the whole layoff thing now as not even a factor. And I understand why, because, trainers and the connections do this more often, and you see horses come back from these incredibly long layoffs to just win easy.
Well, I
And
mean, look at
especially
these
in
3
maidens.
barns in particular.
Right.
Mott is very good. He's around, what is like 18% here. And these are all big sample sizes too. You also see with Clement, we know he's very capable of bringing horses back off long layoffs. Same thing with Cassie. So yeah, they're absolutely, and with horses running just less in general overall, right? You feel like the whole body of horses are just a little bit less fit. So you don't need to be quite as fit when you come back off of these layoffs. It all makes sense.
Yeah,
But
and this is just a tough race in
it
general
is.
because you have these horses doing different things. Some off the layoff. You have Romantic Charmer who's been running, just hasn't been winning. Switching surfaces. So there's a lot to like in a lot of these horses. I personally would not want to gravitate towards any of the favorites, including Film Academy, or Mission Hill. I don't like either one of those, but I probably just put them both in the winning circle or one of them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even the 7, because all 3 of those horses, you can say that they make sense. Like you look at the 9 Mission Hill, like his races aren't bad. The race comes out of was won by Lone Speed. He just missed his third last time out. He's a first time gelding. 10 months off to deal with, though. That's a sizable layoff. And I think he just one of, like, when you kind of go through his entire pedigree of direct siblings, it just usually doesn't bother me that much. But you see a lot of horses that didn't win that much, throughout. So that was at least the thing to mention. He was one of a few winning sibs.
Well, that brings me to another horse that I kind of like, and this one's probably going to get bet not very much. I know this horse is 8-1 on the morning line, but I anticipate, unless something happens behind the scenes and they like this horse a lot more than I do, is number 11 Metatron. This horse has a sibling or two that didn't really run that bad on the turf, and they didn't really run often. And I think this one might have a shot to kind of reverse form and run very well. Was bet pretty good first time out at Aqueduct in April 13th, and didn't really do much running. The comment in the forum says hit the gate 4-path, 5-path, and kind of just galloped out. It seems like this is more of a logical spot, and probably a better spot for this horse to improve. I think this horse will like the turf and probably will get overlooked a little bit. You see the workout pattern is pretty consistent and steady. I'd give this one a shot in a race that looks to be kind of wide open.
You get those horses sometimes when you're playing where you just like, and these are the ones that are hard for me, because I'll look at horses sometimes and you just feel like they're better or they're going to run better. And I can't find out why. Like I look at Artful Dreamer and I was like, I just think this horse is better. And you get these feelings sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at him like he's better. He's going to add the blinkers on. His debut, he lost to a horse like Mr. Skylight, who won next out with an 86 buyer, then was third in the Chick Lang, 7th place finisher that day, came back to win. Watching his races too, he just didn't really show much in either of those starts. But the blinkers perk him up maybe, and he comes to the grass. He doesn't even have like anything direct when you're looking at the pedigree that you'd want to latch onto as far as like turf.
Well, Munnings do okay on
yeah.
turf.
No, absolutely. Just as far as the direct siblings, when you're looking here at the formulator stuff.
Right.
But he's one of those where, gosh, I feel like he's just going to run better than we've seen from him. And I hate even mentioning horses like that, because it's like, based on what? I don't know. I get a feeling like what the hell's your feeling mean? You know what I mean?
Some of those are the ones that get you the big score.
The key is, especially if there are horses that are big prices and they're in races where you're going to be spreading anyways, like those are the horses that it doesn't hurt to hit to add.
Well, they paid $200,000 for this horse, so that's got to mean a little something in a race like this, where these are New York breds, so it's not like he's going up against the best of the best in Kentucky or something.
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely doable. I mean, any one of these horses, to be honest, like it's just a matter of who is feeling good at the time and how the race kind of unfolds. But this is a tough race. I mean, I would definitely not recommend going chalk here.
Let's get to the 9th race. It's the Astoria. Final 2 races on the Thursday card are stakes races. And this one is for the 2-year-old fillies. We saw the boys earlier on the card. I mentioned a horse for Wesley Ward that was training with Long Neck Paula. And here is Long Neck Paula, who wins her debut at Churchill Downs. She was asked from the outside up to the lead. She was challenged by another rival to her outside, and she just put that horse away. She opened up. She was geared down. It was an easy win. Her dam was a graded stakes winner that earned $451,000. She was a nice one. So kind of talking point, we can start there. I also thought the 4 was worth mentioning, Barry, because this filly was really impressive in her debut with the Queen's MG. Those 2 horses were basically in a match race the whole race. They just hook up. They open up like 11 lengths on the field. And she was on the inside of those 2, which is always the tougher place to be, right? When you're battling with another horse and they're on the outside of you in the stretch. And then she comes back and she beats the boys in her second start. And in that race, she sat about 4 lengths off, going 5 furlongs, and closed and won pretty nicely. So just the the body of work between those two races from her, I thought was impressive. I believe this is the barn that is the assistant for George Weaver. So if the name doesn't look familiar to you here, this is the barn, the trainer of West Memorial in this spot. Those two, I'm sure, will take a good amount of money in here, but we have some pretty impressive 2-year-olds who won their debuts or who looked pretty good in their first start or two.
Yeah, these races are always tough. I mean, you see a lot of them when they go up to Saratoga too, in the 2-year-old stakes up there, or at the same track. But they're tough, and you got to really scrutinize these horses in their races just to kind of figure out some sort of edge you can get. West Memorial, I thought his first race was a lot tougher than the second race he was in. And that was against the boys too, the Kentucky Juvenile. And it's strange because I want to like West Memorial in this spot, but I don't think that race was all that strong, despite what she did. I want to go with a horse like the 5, Biscuits with the Boss. I think that race was a lot better and on a slower track, even though it was muddy that day. I think the track was playing a little bit slower, and this horse ran pretty good, fast, dueled, head and head, and kind of prevailed.
It was a weird race too, because
it was.
She was fast early, then she gets sort of pressured from the outside by 2 others, so she drops back to third. She's like half length off, and then she comes on again from the inside. The horses who she beat in the second and the third spot, they both came back to win. Safe Trust dropped in and won a maiden claiming race, and then third place finisher Rapido Rosa won a maiden special weight at Pimlico. So, and in that race, she actually beat the boys too, Rapido Rosa. So, yeah, the races come back live, and don't let speed figures concern you quite as much with the younger horses.
Right, exactly. Races. I was going to say that.
Yeah, the first time out and second time out, we see things jump up a lot, especially if you're at like a lower level track where they're not pushing you to go as fast. You just don't have to run as fast. It's an off track. There could be a lot of variables there why this horse wasn't maybe quite as fast as a few others. But honestly, she's not even really overmatched if you're just looking at speed figures either, right? It's not like
she's right there. Right, a little bit of an improvement. She's with the best of them. Same thing with the 2. That was the other horse.
That was my other horse too.
That one seems very, very logical in this spot. How many times have we seen Steve Asmussen with horses in this similar kind of situation win? Quite a bit, and I think this horse is improving as well as most of them are. It's just a matter of race shape and how things go. I mean,
because down inside could maybe hurt her a little bit, but I love that she sat so nicely. She just took a few strides to get going, but then she tracked in the second flight. She was within 2 horses. She was within like 2 lengths. She made a 3 deep bid, and she just exploded and then was geared down. It was
nice.
It was like a pro. It really was good.
I doubt we're going to get 5-1, but if we get
probably 7-2,
3.5-1, I'm okay with that.
She could flip with French Horn. Like French Horn was good, but I wouldn't be shocked if horses like this were to flip a little bit because maybe just on the connections. But French Horn has Pratt aboard for Cassie. I mean, no knocks on her. Her Dam was a grade 1 winner, multiple graded stakes winner, and she won her first in French Horn's Dam. Oh yeah, right here, Amazon Core. There we go. First one back to back. So the Victory Ride and the Prioress back to back, and then you look at the pedigree. I mean, you have a 10-time winner right off the bat that you see a lot of winning. So overall, strong on the pedigree, won the debut, checked the box on connection. She was fast from the outside. She crossed over. The problem is it was a field of 4, right? So you just don't know exactly who she was beating and how much to take out of it, but some nice horses in here. It's just hard to knock what most of them have done. This horse, she ran a green race where she really ran in spots. And so in her debut, she just put a line right through that race. She was kind of down inside. She just never got into it. And then last time out, she actually has a fast start, but she's 3 deep of 4 horses across the track. So she backs up. She's 2 lengths off. She actually backs up to like 5th And then she comes on again down the center of the racetrack, really kind of green and in between. But I think there's some ability there. Just drawing the rail in a race like this is going to be really tough in this type of a field. Glad you mentioned the 5. And then, I mean, we got to the outside runner, long neck Paula. Right inside of her was the horse who beat West Memorial. And it's really tough to knock what she did, Barry. I mean, she was very fast, good from the outside, and she was 45-1 when she won that race.
Yeah, I mean, she surprised, she shocked the world, and could actually do it again. I think that one might get overlooked, and there's versions of this race where that one can shake loose and go on with it. I mean, any one of them. It's just this is a really tough race.
I had a 4 and 2 as a couple that I definitely wanted to mention and wanted to be using. Barry had the 5 and the 2 as a couple that were definitely on his radar. And then, I mean, long neck Paula, she's the horse to beat.
She's
from the
okay,
outside.
yeah.
Like, she's fine, but she's not like, she doesn't overwhelm me as much as just kind of what I'm hearing about the other ward. And I do.
But that's
kind
what
of
I'm saying. That's why I said that before, because this one might be
the better one, right?
Right.
Yeah,
actually
the better one,
the better horse.
I think it's more that I like a couple of the others in here just that have run probably a little better than I like the earlier ones. The 2 is very interesting to me, who we both are on just from the trip. If she doesn't get shuffled down there and she's able to work out that kind of trip where she sits in the second flight and maybe just sits 2 lengths behind and she's sitting in 4th or 5th, I think she could really get a nice trip in here, because we're expecting long neck Paula to go from the outside. The Queen's MG's gone. Baytown Butterfly went. She was impressive, but her win was at 40. So this is a big step up for her. You'll also have, French Horn, who was pushing it. And who knows, with some of these others who were close, they could also be right there. A contentious Astoria, race number 9 on Thursday at Saratoga. Let's finish up the Thursday card. Barry with the grade 2 2-mile Belmont Gold Cup. We just rarely see races run.
Well, that's why this whole card is kind of challenging, because you got the short races,
super
really
young
short
horses,
2-year-olds. Yep. It's just wild, and it's a handicapping challenge. I mean, it's not star-studded by any means, but there's enough of a challenge as a horse player that you want to get involved in this, because it looks like there's some places where you can get some prices, including this last race.
Yeah, 1 or 2 of these horses you beat, these heavy favorites, and you're going to be in really good shape. If you get both wards are going to be big favorites. Ways and Means is going to be a heavy favorite. It's just unlikely that all of those horses win on the same day and don't get in some trouble, or don't like the track, or don't get the race shape they need. From a talking standpoint, we have last year's top couple finishers from this particular race, which were Siskiny, who won the Belmont Gold Cup, and you also had the Gray Wizard, who was behind Siskiny in the Belmont Gold Cup last year. So those top 2 are drawn to the outside. They're number 11 and 12 in here. I think your favorite and your 3rd or 4th choice is the Gray Wizard, who actually has a little more form with a couple races under his belt versus last year. And then you have Siskiny, who comes in from Maidan, who, I mean, when he shows up with really good efforts, he's tough. And if you just eliminate the dirt race where they just took a swing there to see if he was a dirt horse, he wasn't. Everything else makes a lot of sense. From a starting standpoint, what are we going to do with Siskiny here? He's drawn way to the outside. That could be tough for Appleby. But, class-wise, he is last year's winner. How do we play him?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to win from way out there, especially at Saratoga. If this was at Belmont, it wouldn't concern me as much. But being that this race is at Saratoga and probably will come up a little soggy, possibly, that could be a problem. And there's, a lot of times you want to see these kind of marathon races on the turf and kind of concede it to Mike Maker, and that might be the way to go here. Starting over seems to be improving. Most likely can get the distance, and probably will be in a good spot heading for home.
Isn't this like a real template of like a Mike Maker horse? Like a lot of the things that he's done well. Where
absolutely.
You get this horse that's always been a solid horse. This horse has had a nice career. He was in tough races. He was great at stakes placed, and he was like an upper allowance to a low level stakes horse. But he comes into the maker barn, and immediately when they go longer is when he perks up. And that's what he's always had success with. And just being able to get these horses, figure out the ones that can go longer, and then all of a sudden they just perk up. His three best Beyer speed figures that he's ever run have been in 3 of his last 4 races. And the one that he didn't, he just put a line right through it. It was on a yielding track, a yielding turf course up at Woodbine. He just didn't fire that day. He just was never nowhere. So eliminate that race, and then look at the other 3 where he wins the Colonial Cup, and then he's second in the McKnight in his first start in a few months, and he comes back and he wins the Mac Diarmida, and he's really good that day. And he doesn't have to be that far out of it at 2 miles. No. And in this race, he actually can sit, I think, a lot closer than his last few races have been. He just makes a lot of sense to me in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to think that this horse is going to be live. I mean, he's kind of improving, and this is a good spot for a horse like this. Although I'm not really too fond of the price, but if
he
you
should
beat
be the
even money,
strong second choice, right? Yeah, and he'll probably be 7-2. He'll get bet a little bit, but yeah, he's the real strong second choice. Who else is on your radar? Any other fun prices or anything else you want to mention here?
Pioneering Spirit likes the track there. Has run well in the past, going marathon distances, not 2 miles, but close. And he's 2 for 3 at Saratoga. I think that'll do him well in a race like this. And 6 minus, I'm gonna give a shot to at a big price. I think this horse just missed at this distance in the Allen Jerkins down at Gulfstream back in December, and I think that race in particular kind of was compromised by the horse that won it, F5, who really had his own way on the lead.
Yep.
And this one closed, which not many did that day. So I would give that one a shot too.
The other horse I'm going to be playing and including in exotics is the 6 Champagne Juan. So I like playing horses like this at distance races, long distance races, because there's not much of a division in these mile and a half to 2 mile races. You just don't have that many horses that have that many races going long like this. So why I point that out is because I think it's easier to just sort of jump up from, an allowance race into graded stakes company, because there's not really tiers and levels of horses you kind of have to pass or see,
right.
Oh, do I stack up with that horse or not? And what's to me for this horse, he's a little bit light on speed figures, but he's light on racing overall, right? And when you look at his pattern, he's progressing. His career debut, he actually ran fine. He was on the dirt. His only bad race was in his first start off of a long layoff, and it was in the slop. Everything else is good. He comes back on November the 16th last year. He's a really nice second after a very wide trip. Then he wins on the synthetic at Gulfstream. They go to the turf. He's third behind a horse named Utah Beach, who comes back to win next time out. And then in his last start at Keeneland, he wins. He beats a horse named Truly Quality, who comes back and wins their next start with the 96 Beyer speed figure. So we're just watching this horse improve. And the horse that he just beat came out of that race and really improved on speed figures. Why can't this horse do something just like that, right? I mean, where he speed figure wise can just improve. If that would be one of the only things that knock you off this horse, if you thought maybe he can't keep up with some of the others in here because he's just not been as fast on the Beyer scale. It just does not bother me at all with lightly raced horses like this, who just kind of continue to step up and then check that box as they step up. And once we take out horses like, the really classy Siskiny, we were just pointing out how the 5 starting over, this horse just got really good. He's not like a monster, right? This isn't a race that scares, like anybody really scares the heck out of you, except for an A game from a horse like Siskiny. And when he's drawn out wide like that, we have plenty of reason to be skeptical about what type of effort he can show up with. I'm going to use the 6, in pick 4s and pick 5s and stuff. Champagne Juan.
Hey, might as well. I mean,
he can be close too, right? He doesn't have to be that far out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what with some of these horses, if you're trying to beat Siskiny, I'm hoping that the 5 and the 6 will just be sitting a little closer, 3rd or 4th, like maybe mid pack at the worst.
Yeah, that's probably the sweet spot, kind of in behind the leaders. I don't think, the horses that are probably going to show speed in this spot aren't really that good.
No, So
And
High will go
yeah.
for sure. And then you'll probably have the 8 Sports Editor. Both of them will be 2 of the longer shots in the whole field. Pioneering Spirit will probably be in that tier as well. And he'd probably want to sit right behind them if possible. And then you'll have everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
kind of picking and choosing their spots. That's where it's key for horses like both the 5 and the 6. Can they be sitting 4th, 5th, 6th and not dead last? Because I don't want them to be 10th and 11th and 12th having to close with everyone. Then there's no advantage with them.
Right. Exactly. I think they're going to comprise basically the second flight, and
I
then
hope so. Yeah.
everybody else is going to be behind them.
The deepers.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a look at the Thursday card at Saratoga. We have 4 stakes races 2, 4, and then Barry and I took a look at this late pick 4 sequence that ends with the grade 2 Belmont Gold Cup. So Barry, you will be back to help me out with talking about the Friday. We're going to look at the late pick 4 because that's all graded stakes races. And then the Saturday card will come out soon. I'll get back to you in a little bit. I think you and I might look at maybe like some of the early stakes races on the card, maybe part of like the early, I think there's a middle pick 5 or the stakes start in the 4th race and go through. So I'm going to check out exactly what some of the sequences look like. And you and I will take care of some of that heavy lifting for Saturday and then talk about the Belmont Stakes. What is going on with Big Mondays, going in circles? What do you have? Are you doing any other shows popping up anywhere? Anything else you want to mention for Belmont Week?
I'll be popping around here and there on different things. We're taking a little break on the Going in Circles Big Monday show, so we'll definitely have something out there soon, kind of giving everybody some information as to when we'll be back and things like that. But in the meantime, we're getting prepared for Belmont, and I'll be with Gino.
We'll be I know I'm taking very much advantage of you this week. I told you last week. I was like, I'm going to give you a day off or the week off this week because I'm going to need you probably 3 different times next week to help me out with all sorts of stuff. So thank you, buddy. Let's crush it on Thursday. And for all of you that are watching on YouTube, if you can, hit the like button, subscribe, and help share it around with your friends. I'm going to try to post everything that we're doing on YouTube too. I got real lazy about that for a while. So trying to build that back up. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. We'll have another video out for you Friday talking about all the stakes races. So we'll go through the Friday late pick 4. And then Saturday, we'll hit on most of the card. All the stakes races will be covered, and we'll give you a real big bunch of previews for Saturday stuff. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out. Make sure to head to shop.drf.com. You can get these Thursday past performances as part of the package for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, where you get the past performances, the clocker reports, and you'll get the betting strategies for Belmont Stakes Day. So plenty of tools there to help you succeed at drf.com. Shop.drf.com for all of the products there for Belmont Stakes weekend. Good luck.